I'm a girl with the for the Gators.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was just checking to see if you were listening.
From Destrehan, Louisiana. Hold on a second.
Hey guys! Hey! I'm having a press conference, okay? Thank you.
Momentum, excitement, energy. They say all this stuff and you know what they mean, but it doesn't describe what you mean. It's just sort of out there.
You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings.
I was just worried about, listening to, all your guys' rap poison.
Welcome to Sideline Judgement. Here are your hosts, Sergio and Tyler.
Welcome to Sideline Judgement. My name is Sergio.
And my name is Tyler.
And it is officially, Tyler, Season 5. Can we get a quick round of applause?
Yay. Aplausos. Yay.
Aplausos. Season 5 is here. And as you have heard in the wonderful intro, we now have music. We now have effects. We now have sound bites. It's completely revamped. It is completely revamped, and we are starting off Season 5. We're starting off this 2021 football season, Tyler, the right way, the correct way. I'm very excited to get this going, Tyler.
Likewise. You got me at a bad time because I took a sip of water right there, but
Nice.
Likewise. I'm very excited. Season 5, half a decade.
Woo!
And I'm real jazzed up for what the season might be. Like, there's a lot.
Congratulations to us, Tyler, because this is officially the longest relationship in my life. outside of my family. Officially. I couldn't say that with Season 4, but I can with Season 5, baby.
What a way to start off the season. I'm happy about that.
What a way to start off indeed, Tyler. But before we go into the week-to-week conversations about college football, we have to start with a preview. We have to lay the groundwork down.
It's only fair. It's only right.
It's only fair. Which is why we're splitting this preview into 2 episodes. And on this episode, we will be previewing all 5 of the Power 5 conferences. We will be going in alphabetical order. And we are going to be asking a few questions per conference. We're not going to go into intense detail on each and every team. But we are going to talk about some kind of overarching questions from each conference, some storylines that we like, questions we want answers to. And we're going to talk them through as our way to preview the Power 5 conferences. In the next episode, we will preview Group of 5 and Independents. So as we know, Tyler, we are an inclusive podcast. We are a pro G5 podcast over here. And we will give the G5 and Independents their rightful due. Notre Dame fans, you're going to have to wait until the next episode. Join a conference. Anyway, had to get that one out there.
Taking his revenge one season at a time.
It's one season at a time. By the way, did you see that Notre Dame's going to put one of their games on Peacock?
Oh, really? I did not see that. No.
Yeah, they did. It's one of the earlier games. I don't know which game exactly, but it's like not against a heavy hitter. And it's kind of a litmus test as to like, all right, how many people are going to buy Peacock Premium at like $5-10 a month or whatever it is, just to watch Notre Dame beat this lower
What they
level
should
team.
do is they should just say, we're locking The Office unless you watch this, unless you watch this show. You can't watch any Office reruns unless you watch the show.
I actually love that idea. And ironically, I think Alexa would be watching Notre Dame if that was the case.
That would actually make me hate them if they started to gain people following them by like bribing viewers,
bribing The Office
with Peacock.
Man,
that would piss me off.
Too much Notre Dame conversation for a Power 5 episode. We're gonna hold them off until the next episode with the Group of 5 preview. And if you're wondering, if you hear this noise, ladies and gentlemen, that is my lovely Athlon that I am holding. This is our college football Bible, our reference book, our handy dandy notebook. This is what we use to prepare every single season. Athlon, not a sponsor, but if you want to drop a bag, we're always available. sidelinejudgment@gmail.com. Not a sponsor, but we definitely use them. This is probably my 3rd or 4th year reading it cover to cover, Tyler, I believe. For me, I don't know about you. But
About the same amount of years spent.
mhm.
But I'm a little behind. The job at Redacted has taken a lot of my time, so I'm a little behind. I haven't read the whole thing just yet, but I'm knowledgeable. I've skipped some of the G5 stuff. Gonna read it before we get to our next episode, and then
Love it. It's okay because for today, all you need is the P5 stuff.
Oh yeah, and
All good. So
I'm a little rusty, but it's also this mine's a steel trap, and it's a gift to you guys that I am gonna willingly be wrong on some of these to make you all feel better.
can't wait. So when you hear the rustling of pages, that's what it is. You're going to be having us go to the reference pages for the teams we're going to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler, without further ado, you want to start this 2021 season preview off?
Sure, let's do it. Let's what's our first conference? Yes.
Our first conference, Tyler, is the conference that resides both on the Atlantic and the coast. The ACC, my friend.
In many ways the same thing.
All right. Question number 1 for the ACC. What are realistic expectations for DJ Uiagalelei at Clemson? Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is now a full-time member of the Sideline Judgement NFL fandom team and resides in none other than Duval County.
Yeah, right, he does.
So what can we expect from DJ? What's realistic from him in his first full year as a starter?
Well, I think what's realistic, and I don't even really what's realistic is a playoff berth.
Yeah, no, legit.
That's like the bare minimum that would be expected.
Mm-hmm.
What I would imagine is what should be realistic, what should be expected is a first season very similar to Trevor Lawrence's first season as starter in terms of what the team
in terms of a national championship.
Okay, that's what I was just about to say. Not that part, but in regards to the later seasons of Trevor Lawrence's tenure, especially the last season, they won. Their identity was mainly they were a team that was built to run the football, and Travis Etienne is awesome and was allowed to be awesome. But every year Trevor Lawrence played, the offense was more him. The offense was more, all right, now I'm going to throw for a bunch of yards. And his final game, he threw for 400 against Ohio State.
Right.
But early on, in his freshman year, he was allowed to have a lot of moments to shine. He was one of the best freshman quarterbacks we've ever seen. But he was still just a cog in the wheel. He's still just part of the team. And I think if Clemson, what's realistic, what you should expect from Clemson is that Clemson's roster, which is, really good, is probably going to be a more complete team this year from an identity standpoint, and then DJ should be expected to supplement that with great quarterback play. I don't think he's going to be a superhero every week in, week out.
Right, and I agree with that. But my one thing is, and this is going to sound like like Trevor Lawrence in year 3, but Clemson's only going to go as far as DJ can take them, and here's why: because their backup got hurt in summer camp. And he's out for the full season. I'm not sure if it was a torn ACL, if it was a broken leg. It was something that has him out for the year. And their backup, Tyler, is a walk-on. So DJ is quite literally their bread and butter in terms of initiating an offense. And no offense to the walk-on whose name I'm not remembering right now, but he is not DJ Uiagalelei, 5-star recruit coming out of California, made his first start on the road at Notre Dame in arguably one of the best regular season games of the year last season. I think they're only going to go as far as they go, as far as DJ will take them. But if we're looking at the schedule, I mean, they really only have one major test, maybe 2, and it's Georgia neutral site to start the season on September 4th.
Which is looking more doable with some more recent news. Georgia, we'll get to that later.
We'll get to the SEC and Georgia later on, of course. But the only other kind of quote-unquote trap I can see is they have back-to-back weeks at Syracuse. Syracuse is not what I'm worried about. But then they go to Pitt. And I'm not saying that Pitt is a better team than Clemson, but we all know that Pitt pits sometimes. You know what I mean?
It's true. Pitt does.
So that's the only thing that I really see can slip them up. I don't see – Boston College may give them some trouble like they did in the first half last year. I don't see South Carolina making noise. I don't see Georgia Tech making noise. It's really the Georgia game at the beginning. So they can get over Georgia. It's kind of smooth sailing to the playoffs, really.
And that's the thing, is that part of the realistic is also DJ, this team can only go as far as DJ can take them. So for that very reason, I think Clemson fans shouldn't want him to have to superhero too much. Like,
Agreed.
Because I mean, we've seen DJ Uyunglele superhero, like, and he can do it, but you don't want him to be doing that every week because first of all, you shouldn't need it. You're Clemson,
Right?
And yeah, if he can prove himself in that Georgia game, again, he's proved a lot already. But if he can prove himself as the full-time starter in that Georgia game, getting them over the hump, they should be smooth sailing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if we're going to stay in the ACC, Tyler, let's go from a team that has a for sure quarterback to a team that's a little bit more unsure about the quarterback position. That's Florida State. My second question, Tyler, is can Mike Norvell show signs of life at FSU?
I don't know. I really don't, because I do think Mike Norvell was a good hire at the time, and like
I still think he's a good hire.
No, and I'm not against that, but the problem is that the pit that you're in at Florida State is so deep, mostly because of the quarterback situation. And yes, you brought Mackenzie Milton in, and I love Mackenzie Milton. Everybody does from what he was, but he hasn't played in a couple of years, and
he almost had his leg
amputated. You don't know what
amputated.
percentage of that old player he still is,
right?
Like, because he will not be 100% the player he ever was. That's off the table. But is he 70 or is he 40? Like, and
yeah.
If your
if
roster's
he's
not in a position, your roster's not in a position to boost him up if he's not great. Like,
yeah, and if Milton's on that 40% range, I mean, their other options are Jordan Travis, right, who we saw a bit last year, more of a runner than a passer, and then the younger Purdy brother who got hurt last season, wasn't able to really establish himself as much as he wanted to, but it's a pretty young room, so there's not really like that leadership to fall back on. Yes, we talked about Milton, but if Milton, like you said, can be 75-80% of what he was, I think this offense is going to be in a bit better shape. Now, the biggest question, in my opinion, isn't really quarterback, it's more offensive line. They haven't really had a Power 5 caliber.
When was the last time they had a good offensive line?
I'm not joking when I tell you the national championship in 2013-14.
Yeah,
I'm
that
not
makes
kidding.
sense.
I really do believe that was the last time FSU had an offensive line that was capable of living up to the Florida State reputation of a football team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like Mike Norvell. I think it's going to depend on the offense this season. The defense looked decent at times. They had talent last year, but they definitely were not the team that was kind of advertised beforehand. They didn't really gel well. A lot of changes, a lot of different players. Can the offensive line grow? And can the quarterback position can one of those guys take the reins of the quarterback position? And in my opinion, I think it's going to be Milton from everything that's been kind of reported.
I can't imagine it really being anybody else. Like, I mean, the Purdy kid maybe, but they're just in a weird roster spot.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to take time. It's going to take time.
And we'll see if Mike Norvell gets that time. If you look at their schedule, which I just lost on the page. There it is.
I got you.
Their schedule does not start off nice. Their first game is against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But after that, it's some manageable games. And yeah, automatic losses at Clemson. And I would probably say automatic losses at North Carolina. And I'll say probably at Florida as well.
Yeah.
But that's
and honestly, I'll even add on to that. I'll add automatic losses to Boston College. I'll add automatic losses to NC State. Miami is always a toss-up game because it's a rivalry game.
The goal of this team is to make it to a bowl.
Agreed.
Like,
can they? We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. All right, next up with the ACC, can North Carolina unseat Clemson in Sam Howell's final year?
That's a tough one because they don't play in the regular season. Important to know.
Very important.
Yeah, let me just double check that. I was looking. Yeah, they don't play in the regular season, so you're only going to have to beat them once. That favors North Carolina, because you only have to beat them one time. You don't have to beat them twice. Sam Howell's final year, he has been a really good college quarterback. He proved a lot between his first year and his second year. I expect him to prove again. I expect him to be this year. I expect him to be the best quarterback in the conference. It'd probably be arguable between him and DJ, but I do feel like Sam Howell has a bit of an experience boost and a bit of familiarity boost with his team a little bit more because he's been the starter for 2 years now.
Yeah.
So it really depends on, can UNC win their division, which I think is very doable. Can they win their division? Can they beat Clemson? This is their shot. This is the best shot they're going to have. Like,
I think the argument could have been that their best shot was last year, because when you look at the players that are gone and the skill position players that kind of stepped in, I'm looking at their like depth chart. Everyone returns. All of the returning starters on offense, all 8 of them, they're all either offensive linemen or Sam Howell. There's only one skill position player returning that was a starter, that was their tight end, Garrett Walston. Everyone else is brand new in terms of a starting position. So can those skill players, we know Mac's been recruiting really well, but can those skill players kind of step up? Can they take that leadership in that role? Or will they kind of, succumb down and kind of take a bit of a step back from their Orange Bowl appearance last season,
Yeah, but I agree with it. As much as that is true, it's a matter of, I think Clemson is not as good as they were last year, or at least, who knows? I mean, it's hard to judge because it's just you're more likely to beat DJ's first year starting than you probably were to beat Trevor Lawrence's final year.
That's true.
It took what it took for them to. It took the Notre Dame game, which was wild, and had Trevor Lawrence getting COVID to do it. And it took, the only other loss that they had was against Ohio State, against Justin Fields, and Justin Fields' best game. Like,
right. And here's the thing, where if we remember the Kelly Bryant year, like the Kelly Bryant year was kind of a little bit of a step back, but they didn't really.
They were still a number 1 seed in the playoff.
Exactly.
Like,
so they're still going to be a good team. They still recruit well.
So we'll see. I mean, I think UNC's in for a very good year, but there's a monster at the end of that tunnel that this will be their best chance to beat Clemson, but I wouldn't bet on them doing it just because it's hard to bet against Clemson.
I would put UNC in the ACC title game, though.
I would feel pretty confident about that.
Yeah. And there's only one other team that I think really has that type of competition in the ACC Coastal, and it's Miami. And my last question in the ACC, Tyler, how far will D'Eriq King take Miami this year?
I would argue about as far as he took him last year.
It's kind of their ceiling, I think, right?
Like, the team is not built, and the offense is not built in a way that it can run without D'Eriq King. Because that was our whole thing last season was that they just built an offense out of D'Eriq King scrambling and making stuff happen.
And when you have D'Eriq King, works great.
Which worked for them, actually. I didn't think it was going to work as well as it did, and it worked great. And their defense will still be fine at the very least because it's Manny Diaz. Like,
so he's actually taken over the coordinator role. They don't have a defensive coordinator anymore. Yeah. He is taking on the responsibility of being the defensive coordinator as well as the head coach. And I think it's important to note that they lost a lot of skill position players at the end of last season. They gave up like a 15,000 yards to North Carolina at the end of the season, if you remember that.
On the ground, mostly, also.
On the ground, exactly. So, yeah, Manny Diaz stepping in. We know how good of a defensive coordinator he is. Can he fix those problems?
Yeah, and that's really what's going to determine the season, because if D'Eriq King comes back from his torn ACL pretty fine, which in today's day and age, unless I hear otherwise, I'm kind of going to assume, because people come back from torn ACLs pretty quickly now.
They're coming back faster and stronger than ever.
Yeah, so if he can stay healthy, that side of that ball, I think, is largely going to be the same. Yeah, he won't have Brevin Jordan, but Miami, I think, will be fine in that development. Because, again, the wide receivers and Brevin Jordan weren't really the reason that offense ran. It was all D'Eriq King scrambling, making plays. So it's really what's going to be determined this team is, will Manny Diaz be able to keep the defense up to speed?
I agree.
So we'll see. I think they're just going to be pretty much the same team as they were last year.
Yep.
And
I think so too. I think
North Carolina will be better.
Yeah. To wrap up the ACC, just a few coaches that are potentially on the hot seat. Dino Babers absolutely is on the hot seat. Scott Satterfield flirted with South Carolina. He has openly kind of said that he is not the biggest fan of being at Louisville right now, so keep an eye on him. Justin Fuente, Virginia Tech's athletic director, called a press conference at the end of the year just to announce that they weren't firing him. So
Have you
if
ever
that's,
heard of such a thing? Have you
never have I ever, Tyler. So if that's an indication as to what's going on in Blacksburg, now we know. David Cutcliffe at Duke, the man, legendary coach, legendary offensive mind, the Manning's brainchild. But yeah, no.
All the Mannings have already retired.
Yeah. I don't think
Go
he's sticking
sit
around
on a
for
beach,
Arch.
my guy. Go.
I don't think he's sticking around for Arch either, just to put it nicely. And then I put Manny Diaz, not because I think he deserves to be fired. No, I think he's actually a good fit for Miami, and I think, if given time, he'll build them back to be a bit more respectable consistently. But I know Miami. It's an impatient town. They may just not want to,
The worst thing you could be in Miami is stagnant.
Agreed. So
you got to be good, man. You got to be good and explosive and showy
and cocky. Yeah,
and cocky.
showy.
And you got some of that, I think, some of the time, but his records have not reflected it.
And it'd be interesting to see, can he do it without De'Aaron King? That's a question for next season and the year after that, if he's there around. So that's it for the ACC. Let's move forward to the Big Ten. Let's start off with the front runner for the Big Ten, Ohio State. It's a very simple question. We don't have to spend too much time on it. Who's going to be the quarterback at Ohio State to start the season? Is it CJ Stroud, Jack Miller III, and I put Quinn Ewers?
I don't know how to say it. I think it's Ewers.
We're going to go with Ewers. Quinn Ewers. CJ Stroud and Miller are both redshirt freshmen, and Ewers is a freshman who reclassified from 2022. He was the number one player in the country in 2022, and I believe he was the number one or number two player in the country when he reclassified to 2021. This is an elite quarterback prospect, decided to enroll early, a full season early at Ohio State, and he's in that quarterback room. So I don't think he's going to get the starting job, but I had to mention him. Tyler, who starts the season at quarterback for Ohio State and who ends the season at quarterback for Ohio State?
I think will be CJ Stroud. I don't see it being anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But the real answer for who is going to be the quarterback for the rest of the season is which quarterback does Chris Olave like the most?
Chris Olave, star wide receiver for Ohio State, decided to stay back for his senior year.
The hugest decision was the surprising one that Chris Olave made to stay back. And I said that kind of jokingly, that it's whoever he is. I'm kind of right, because Ohio State recruits at the next level.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a boatload of talent, and I'm sure all three of these quarterbacks are very talented.
Yeah.
I imagine, considering I know CJ Stroud was higher on the depth chart than Jack Miller was, both of them were redshirt freshmen. True freshmen last year. I know CJ Stroud was higher on the depth chart. I imagine it's going to go to him.
Yeah.
And barring a disaster, I imagine he'll keep it. But I don't feel like Ryan Day would just start a true freshman willy-nilly. But
especially one that arrived 2 weeks ago because he just reclassified.
I mean, from everything I understand is that Ryan Day is pretty good about building the offense around his quarterback.
Yeah.
And not so much in a unlocking every aspect of their talent, more than he probably spent a lot of time with CJ Stroud and is gonna, he's building an offense to cater to his skill set, so he's probably gonna honor that. And if it works, there's no reason to change it.
I agree, which is why I think Stroud's going to be the quarterback throughout the entire season. It technically is an open competition, but I really don't see it as one. You know what I mean?
And the true thing you have to keep in mind is that there's very few opportunities for him to be for Ohio State to face something that is going to make CJ Stroud's limitations, if he has any, super apparent.
Yeah.
If he's bad, we'll know. But if he's okay, it's going to be hard to tell if he's okay or great. Because at Ohio State, with these weapons, that all looks the same most of the time.
Yeah.
Dwayne Haskins is an okay NFL quarterback on the grand scheme of things. He was a Heisman finalist under Ryan Day.
Exactly. So makes sense. All right, let's move forward in the Big Ten. Tyler, what does a Penn State bounce back look like?
Penn State bounce back. Getting an offense that makes you fear the quarterback again would probably be that.
Okay.
And that's a hard thing, because
Does Trace McSorley have eligibility left?
That hasn't been there since Trace McSorley left. So it comes down. I mean, it comes down to being as simple as recruiting special players.
Yeah. That's
but
pretty much it.
I mean, when you're James Franklin, you kind of do that. So
yeah.
I mean, the defense I think will still be good. It's super talented. It really
the defense wasn't the problem last year.
No.
The problem was offensively they couldn't keep up.
Yeah, and it once again all comes down to: are you going to let Sean Clifford continue to be your quarterback? Like, you got Mike Yurcich now, who I like as an offensive coordinator.
Yes.
And
so can I do the quick defense of Sean Clifford? And I'm not saying I believe this. I'm literally, I don't want to use the term devil's advocate because I don't want to advocate, but I do want to give an explanation. This is now the third offensive coordinator that Sean Clifford has had in 3 years.
Yeah.
It's a bit difficult to get familiar and get continuity when you have that constant change, especially with the position coach or, the coordinator that you're working with on an everyday basis,
Yeah.
An offensive coordinator and their quarterback are hand in hand. They're going through things, And so this is something that I feel has hindered him. It's not an excuse. It's not a, I think it's a reason. I think it's a factor. I don't think it's the sole reason why he's been the way he has been. But I mean, I don't know. Do you think that Franklin trusts Taquan Robinson, the true freshman that came in, more?
That was the thing I was going to bring up, is that the problem that becomes is that Penn State didn't grab anybody on a transfer market to replace Sean Clifford with. So you either got to hope Mike Yurcich can make something happen and with the running game and then make Sean Clifford better with the offense he puts in, or you got to go with the freshman. And I'm not going to advocate that anyone just starts a true freshman willy-nilly. So you're basically a Penn State bounce back is basically banking on Mike Yurcich being a really good offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree, and I think the schedule does them some favors, but not too many. They start the season on the road at Wisconsin, and then they got Ball State at home, Auburn at home, Villanova at home, and Indiana at home. Realistically, they could start 5-0. They could.
Within reach.
It's within reach. I don't think that they'll beat Wisconsin on the road to start the season, but they could. And if they lose that game, they could probably start 4-1 because I don't think Auburn is winning heading into Happy Valley.
It's at Penn State.
Yeah, and
Happy Valley,
my feelings, right? And we'll talk about Indiana in a second, but I'm not too high on Indiana either. So and it's at home, so they could theoretically get there. The tough part of their schedule is October 30th at Ohio State. They get Michigan at home. They have to go on the road to Michigan State. Is that really difficult? You know what I mean? So I think we will see a bounce back. I don't know if it'll be at the level of contending for a playoff spot or even contending for a
conference. I could not imagine that with this team this year, honestly.
No, but I do think that they'll bounce back. James Franklin is one of the best coaches in the country.
Yeah,
I agree.
They were pretty bad last year.
They were horrendous.
And I kind of forget that when talking about this, is that bounce back, just be your old self, which is like an 8 to 9 win team. That's super doable.
Get back on track.
Yeah, because
get back on track.
They were bad last year.
Oh yes. All right, let's move forward, Tyler. Will Graham Mertz revitalize Wisconsin's offense like we thought would happen last year?
No. I'm not. No, I'm just not really certain because I like Graham Mertz and I think he's probably one of the best Wisconsin quarterbacks they've had since Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. But it's not about Graham Mertz. It's about, are they going to let him revitalize their offense?
So here's when we were talking before the show, what I was going to say. Wisconsin showed signs of change last year. They did. They looked at what Graham Mertz could do, and they started calling a bit more of throwing plays down the field. Now they weren't, they didn't run a spread offense, but they started to throw the ball more. What hurt them last year was COVID. They were one of those horrifically hit teams with COVID.
That's very true.
I think that this season we could start to think of Wisconsin not so much as a ground and pound, Midwestern, traditional Big Ten football team, but they will incorporate more passing concepts. I'm not saying they're going to turn into Mike Leach in the air raid, but they will start incorporating more passing concepts, especially off the play action, because Graham Mertz has the ability to do so. I think we're going to think of Wisconsin a lot more. We're going to think a lot more of Wisconsin later on down the road of the season. And I think it's because of that, because they're going to start to ease their way into opening the playbook a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more.
Well, what helps in that regard is the fact that Mertz is getting all his top targets back. All of his top targets are coming back, which doesn't mean super much because it's Wisconsin and he doesn't have it's not Chris Olave, but he's got some good players. Paul Chris will be assuming QB coaching duties and call plays for the Badgers. He, which is interesting because he was Russell Wilson's offensive coordinator when Brett Bielema was the head coach of Wisconsin.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. Where I think they saw the potential last season, and they were like, you know what? Let's go. Hey, where are those Russell Wilson plays? Oh, they're back there in storage. Can you go get them? That's what I feel is happening.
Yeah, but I just guard against believing that it's so easy to be like, well, okay, he coached Russell Wilson, so obviously his next player will have Russell Wilson.
Well, it's not just because he coached
and
Russell Wilson.
I know that's not what you're saying, but
but it's Graham Mertz shows the potential. It's like when you see, it's like when a piano teacher sees like a prodigious student, right? It's like, oh my gosh, okay, I don't break out these books for the normal classes, but like you got to start learning this stuff.
That's
you know
true.
What I mean?
You're not going to call the same plays for Jack Cohn as you are going to call it for Graham Mertz. So
absolutely. Although, hey, listen, Brian Kelly might. So I don't know.
That's a good point. All right.
One note. Speaking of Brian Kelly, Wisconsin does play Notre Dame this year, neutral site in Chicago at Soldier Field. That game is on September 25th. I think that game's going to be a lot of fun. All I wanted to say.
That's exciting. God, looking at all these schedules makes me so excited for all these games that I forgot were happening. Like
we're coming
I didn't know
up, man.
Auburn was going to Penn State until we started talking about it.
Oh, yes. We're coming up on it. 2 more questions for the Big Ten quickly. Can Indiana replicate the home field magic of last season?
Probably not, because that's an extremely hard thing to do. Michael Penix is back, and that's awesome.
He is.
Indiana's so fun. I want us to get to 9-win Indiana again. But let's be super real here. That's going to be very difficult to
I think 9-win Indiana's the ceiling.
Yeah,
not the floor.
Like that magic is the key word there.
But I think Indiana will be a fun team to allegedly bet on, and will be a fun team to kind of watch because, like you said, Penix is coming back, Freifogel is coming back, so is Marshall. His returning receivers are back, and we saw just how much they threw the football last season. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun team to watch, but I just don't think they can get to where they were.
And like is the thing that they play offense differently than most of the other teams in their division. They are very willing to throw the football around. So as long as they keep that identity, they'll be fun. And you know what, Indiana, that's all that really matters to me.
Yeah, I agree. Another team that I thought was pretty fun the past couple of seasons, not last season, the season before, Minnesota. Did Minnesota max out their potential in 2019?
Yes.
The famous 10-win row the boat season. I believe the last game of the season was against Wisconsin where they lost the game. It was in the snow for the Paul Bunyan Trophy.
And that was part of the reason I won the competition that year for picks is that I got that right.
Anyway, do you think that they maxed out their potential in 2019?
Yes, I do.
Poor K.
One, Tanner Morgan's not that good. Just putting it out there. I'll never forget people ranking Tanner Morgan above Kyle Trask in preseason last year. I will never forget. But beyond that, I mean, Tanner Morgan wasn't the reason they won those games. I mean, he was fine, but it was like Minnesota.
Well, Tanner Morgan took a poo-poo on the mattress, to say it without cursing, a couple of times last season, and most notably in the big games in 2019 as well.
Yeah. But that 2019 game, that 2019 season, part of that whole thing was that Minnesota had recruited such good Florida talent that was underrated, got up there. It is a system that worked for them, but it is not a system. It is not a system that's easy to replicate. Right. Yeah. So could they do something similar? I think so, but I wouldn't bet on it because the way that they constructed their team that season does not feel very replicable to me. in the sense of, yeah, you can still go down and try and get all that talent from Florida, that underrated talent, those 3 stars that could be backups at Florida and Alabama, but will start for you. You'll find those players, but you also got to hit on them.
Right.
Like, and they did hit on them with like Tyler Johnson and things like that. But
Winfield.
And Antoine Winfield, huge one.
Yeah.
And
I
these
agree.
players just won a Super Bowl. Like,
literally they did.
Are you able to recruit NFL caliber players at Minnesota in consistently enough to assemble them on a team to win you the division over Wisconsin? You couldn't even do that one time. Like I think that they'll still be a pretty okay team because they're constructed relatively well. But I don't know I think that might have been the climax of what we've seen. They might get close to it again though.
Yeah.
But
I think they may be in a position to spoil Wisconsin's season at the end of the year, but I don't know if they're going to be the ones that are going to be playing. They're not going to be playing themselves into a Big Ten championship game, I'd say.
Yeah.
So I only have one potential hot seat for this conference, and it's Scott Frost, especially after the news that
which is hilarious.
So we're recording this on Wednesday, August 18th, and this morning news broke that Nebraska and Scott Frost apparently are being investigated by the NCAA for similar things that happened over in Arizona State with Herm Edwards, where off-season workouts when they shouldn't have had them and visits and all that kind of stuff. So he is on the
all
hot
that
seat
still be terrible.
Yeah, and that's the thing where he was on the hot seat and was on my little potential hot seat list before that broke. Now he's just kind of on hot seat alert rather than potential. So just keep an eye on Nebraska, see if they turn things around.
Scott Frost's record at that school is 12-20 in 3 years.
Not great, Bob.
He's averaged 4 wins a year.
He does have a national championship at UCF, though.
No, shut up.
The Big 12, Tyler. The Big 12. Is this the last year we see OU and Texas in the Big 12?
Why have you not updated this document in the last 3 weeks?
Okay, so listen, I put this as a joke, but I do want to ask a serious question. Do you think that they make it through 2023, or do they work something out in court where this is going to be the last season, and then next year, the 2022 season, is the first year with 16 teams in the SEC? You don't have to elaborate much. Just
that's actually good. That's a good question because I could see it happening both ways. Like,
mm-hmm.
I think part of it is gonna depend on how this season goes because this, like, if LU and Texas do their normal thing and they just are what they are, I can see it stretching out for another season. But you got to imagine that all of these other teams in the conference are going to start treating this like their farewell tour.
And it's not going to be a pretty farewell tour, Tyler.
And those teams, it's good. This is going to be ugly for OU and Texas. And, like, that's fine. That's, they signed up for that. Like, but,
yeah.
But if that happens, are OU and Texas, are you going to want to sit through another year of this, or are you going to get your lawyers to find you a way out of it? Like,
No. I think the lawyers are going to find a way out of it. It's a question of, is it going to be 1 or 2 seasons? I think this is going to be the last season.
Yeah.
And listen, I think they will pay whatever it costs to break it early because they're going to make it all back with the SEC. So.
Oh, yeah.
Just curious on that one, Tyler. Let's move on to the actual questions. Who will Oklahoma beat in the Big 12 title game? Now, this question clearly implies that Oklahoma will be one of the 2 teams in the Big 12 title game.
Oklahoma's, going to the Natty, so it's whatever.
Exactly. So who are they going to beat in the Big 12 title game?
I've been saying that for months. Who will they beat? It's not going to be Texas. So it would be it's going to be Iowa State. It's going to be Iowa State.
Okay. So then let me just put together this question and the next one. The next question is the Iowa State Encore. What's their ceiling? So clearly you think that they're going to make the Big 12 title game. Can they win the game?
They can absolutely win the game. I don't think Iowa State has a playoff ceiling. Let me clarify that. Like, I think similar to last year, they can get to that game. I think they were the 1 seed last year, weren't they?
They hope because they won. They beat
Oklahoma, and they only
Oklahoma
lost like one other conference game. Like,
well, they beat
no.
them in Ames, and they wore the All Blacks, undefeated in the All Blacks.
Yeah,
and that was what started off Brocktober, because they
Yes.
went on like a
tear,
tear starting with that game.
So yes, so I don't think Iowa State is gonna like. It would be a freaking give Matt Campbell all the trophies if he got Iowa State to a playoff. That would be just a feat of coaching. But
I think an Iowa State playoff berth is contingent upon an undefeated Iowa State.
Yeah,
and an undefeated Iowa State requires beating Oklahoma twice.
Well, I think you can do it with one loss, but you can't. Neither of those losses can beat Oklahoma. You would have to beat Oklahoma twice, and you would have, got it. Like
and those would have to be Oklahoma's only.
If they lost to Iowa in their rivalry game and they went undefeated in the Big 12 and then won the conference championship, it'd be possible. Like
unlikely,
but that's not what it really meant. It's like I think that it'd be unlikely. They can't just do their thing and get into the playoff, even if they do the best of their ability. They have to look at other factors. Like they're not in the realm of teams that like Oklahoma is, where like all Oklahoma really has to worry about is playing their schedule right. Like, because if they play their schedule to the best of their ability, they're in. Like, but Iowa State can get back to the same spot and they can win. Iowa State can get a Big 12 conference championship.
So that's the ceiling.
That's 12 the ceiling. Title. I don't think they can go to the playoff. Like it would just, I don't see that happening, but they can do. I think this team is going to be about as good, if not better, than when they had last year. Oklahoma will also be better, so that'll be interesting. But I think this team can do it.
And it's also would be the most successful season in Iowa State history. Not even joking.
None.
Yeah,
last year was.
Exactly. Yeah,
it just needs to be better than last year.
Brock Purdy is back for his senior year. Breece Hall is back for his junior year. Xavier Hutchinson is back. Sean Shaw is back. All the usual suspects return. Matt Campbell, I trust his defense.
When
this
Urban
is going to
Meyer
be
doesn't work out for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Matt Campbell, please come to Jacksonville. Like
you haven't even played a game, Tyler. You haven't even played a game.
It has nothing to do with the product on the field, Sergio.
Oh, I know. Believe
it has
me.
Absolutely nothing to do. I have made one of my friends down here at my job at Redacted is a Browns fan, and I think is from Ohio. And she joked. She once again was just like joking about the whole Urban Meyer things, like because I think she was just like, yeah, well, we kind of sent you up with Urban Meyer. And I'm like, I'm a Florida fan. like I am fully aware. Don't you talk to me about Urban Meyer? Like,
we gave him to you. What are you talking about?
And now he came back.
Oh man!
Anyway.
To put a button on Iowa State, they play Oklahoma in Norman, November 20th. So second to last game of the season. So it'll be two teams that know who they are. I hope that they're both undefeated up until that point. It looks like a potential game day location. It's going to be a fun one. To look at. All right, quickly, two more questions in the Big 12. Tyler, how long will it take, if it does, for Sark to bring Texas, quote unquote, back?
Not while it's in the Big 12. Like,
so a minimum of 1 to 2 years.
1 to 2 years. It's not going to be this year.
Minimum.
I mean, I just don't. I mean, because Sark, people don't realize that Sark had that crazy good offense because he had Alabama weapons, and I do think Sark's a good coach. Like,
me too. I think he's a great offensive mind.
But he won, and Alabama's offense is not archaic in any means. It is a good offense, a relatively modern offense, but it is an offense that still relies on certain plays and certain play styles that benefit from having better talent than most everyone you play. While that can still be true at Texas, like for most of their schedule, it's not the same way it's true again in Alabama. Like Texas is not a team that beats up people like physically. Iowa State is a team that beats up people. Kansas State, when they're good, is a team that beats up people. Oklahoma now on defense is starting to do that thing where they beat up people. But Texas, when they're good lately, it's not because they are dominating physically. Like you don't, from what I understand, is like teams, you don't look at the other team after they play Texas and be like, yeah, win or loss, they are going to be in the ice baths after this game. Like,
right.
And that's what you get when you play Alabama. And so Sark's going to have to recruit to that level. And he's got a lot of talented players right now. So I think that he can figure something out, but it will not be an immediate fix, because I don't think it's an immediate fit. It will not be an immediate fix because it's not an immediate fit. Sark can't just plug in and plug his system in there and play it the same way it was at Alabama. So you're not going to get those results just yet. I think Texas will be fine. And they'll probably be more buttoned up than they were under Tom Herman.
I completely agree on the second point, and I think to your thesis about it, where they're just not ready yet. I do think though that Sark is the right guy for that job. We know Sark's personal history as a head coach, and he's battled alcoholism, and I'm very happy for him that that he's recovered and is living with that day to day in a positive way. I think he is the right man for the job in terms of recruiting. I do think that he can convince people to go there. In the last cycle, Alabama landed the top 2 offensive linemen in the country, both from the state of Texas, both from a Texas family, and they decided to leave Texas and go to Alabama. I don't think those players leave the state of Texas with Sark as the head coach of Texas. You know what I mean?
And that's not going to help him this year, but that will help him in 2 years.
Agreed. Yeah, because listen, as much as I like Bijan Robinson, and I really like Bijan Robinson, I think he's going to have a great year. He's not Najee Harris.
No.
And even as much as we made fun of Mac Jones for, just being the ultimate game manager and being good, but not necessarily,
man won a national championship.
Right, exactly.
He got his wide receiver a Heisman.
Yeah, knew what to do. And as much as I liked Casey Thompson in the bowl game last season, it's not Mac Jones. You know what I mean? There's
the most important thing of all is that Texas O-line is not bad, but it ain't the Alabama O-line.
Exactly. It'll take time. But I believe that they will get there. I think they will be a force when they enter the SEC. I do think that people will. Obviously, Oklahoma's the big get in terms of immediate football success for the SEC, but Texas.
I do think now that Texas is moving to the SEC, the Sark hire is even better.
Me too.
Because I will say one of the things with the Sark hire was, and coaches change the way that they do things a lot depending on their conference, is that Sark's offense works, while it is still modern, sets up better for an SEC opponents than it would for Big 12 opponents.
Right.
Just in regards to play style, and there's a lot of things we talked about as being counterculture to whatever else is happening in the conference, but you also have to recruit the same players, yada, 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 all that. It would have been a counterculture thing in the Big 12, and now it's going to just be, can you recruit well in the SEC?
And I think it can.
Yeah. So
last thing on Texas, they open the season at home against Louisiana. Billy Napier heads to Austin on September 4th.
For the job he should have gotten.
That's a take that I don't.
I'm joking, but
no. But I like it. I know you're joking, but I like it. Some of us may or may not allegedly be taking Louisiana on that, just to throw some feelers.
Hey, be careful if Louisiana, because if Louisiana beats a Big 12 team in the opening game of the season, that Big 12 team is going to the championship game.
You damn right they are. They talk about the kiss of death. It's the kiss of life. Last one on the Big 12. I don't want to spend much time on this, Tyler. Lance Leopold's at Kansas.
I could not think of a more perfect hire.
I agree. I love it.
I genuinely am this could actually be good for them.
You know how we give coaches a year 0 or maybe 2 years grace period, whatever. Give him 5 years.
He'll get there. He'll get there. But
he will. Give him time, and he will get there. Yeah. I don't think they win a game this season, but
but that's
it's a long-term project. No, not his fault. So
moving on.
Hold on, potential hot seat coaches in the Big 12. I put Gary Patterson at TCU and Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State.
It's weird to me.
Well, because they're both coaches that have been there forever. They're both coaches that are unassailable. The identity of those programs in terms of the face as coaches. I just think
results have not been there lately.
For both of them, and I think that especially last year and the year before, last year with Mike Gundy, underwhelming year with super talented players and just didn't work out. I don't know how much longer both of these guys are going to get a leash. They probably both have earned the right on the football field to just kind of let their schools know when they're done. Mm-hmm. But you never know how it goes. So just to keep an eye on them could potential. Tyler, let's head out to your neck of the woods. to the Pac-12.
Now, yeah, that's so weird.
I know, right?
Like,
I know. All right, first question. Can Oregon break through into the playoff picture?
absolutely.
Poor K.
The best team in this league, and this league's actually going to get probably going to get all their full games. So, like, the Pac-12 could not afford to have less games than everybody else last year. Like,
No,
they just really couldn't. Like, and they didn't.
For starters, they're in the Pac-12.
They didn't do anything with that. But if you're in the Pac-12 now, and it's just like, all right, even if you went undefeated in the last year's COVID year, that wasn't going to mean anything for the playoff. Like, because people don't hold the Pac-12 in that high of an esteem, which, is valid considering the product that they put out. But Oregon, I think, is the only team that has the blueprint with the recruiting to be good enough to get into the playoff. Now, let me clarify this. I don't think, I'd have to see how Oregon is. I don't think Oregon's in a state where they can go win a playoff game, but get there. I think it's possible. Like, I think they're clearly the best team in the league right now. It's about quarterback.
That's where I was getting at.
Yeah.
Tyler, the great Oregon teams of the past decade, what do they have in common?
An NFL quarterback.
An NFL quarterback. Marcus Mariota may not be the elite starter that Justin Herbert has shown to be, but he's an NFL caliber quarterback. He's an overqualified backup. He's one of those
He's a Heisman
starters. He's a freaking Heisman winner. I don't see a quarterback at the level of Justin Herbert or Marcus Mariota on this football team. Anthony Brown, the transfer, is coming in. I don't know how I feel about it. Give him a shot, maybe, but they got rid of their quarterback room. A couple guys transferred out from last season. This season, they get a new guy coming in. If it can click, it'll be great. Because like you said, they have the talent all around them in all other areas, but I'm not so sure that they have the quarterback to lead and depend on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a long shot. I wouldn't bet on Oregon making the playoff, but they're the only team in the Pac-12 that I think could do it this year.
Right.
So yeah, it really is going to come down to, did they recruit somebody special at quarterback? Because you'll never know. Because I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't like Anthony Brown's fine, but like, I fully intend to see other quarterbacks play at some point this season.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that they're going to lose, but to spark that. But I can just imagine they're playing Stony Brook on September 18th, and they're just like, all right, Anthony Brown, come out. Who's the next guy?
Yeah.
And
okay, could be.
Yeah. So, and maybe they find something crazy. They have the infrastructure set up. I think they're gonna win the league, but. Yeah,
I could realistically, even with subpar quarterback play relative to everything else, I could see them going 11-1, 10-2.
Yeah.
One of those guaranteed losses at Ohio State on September 11th.
Yeah. Now that I'm looking at it, I think I would go back on what I said about them making the playoff. Like, they're the only team in the league who could do it. I wouldn't bet on it. But I think they can easily get to 10 wins
makes sense
with their roster, as long as their quarterback situation is fine. And their offense under Joe Moorhead now, like,
been good. Joe Moorhead, consistently a good coordinator, good play caller.
Like, yeah, and they've got Kayvon Thibodeau, so we'll see.
All right, let's move further south. Tyler, how much longer can Clay Helton keep getting away with this?
While I'm in this city, not long.
That's guys. Redacted. The job Redacted. Tyler keeps talking about. It's really just him spearheading the coup to get rid of Clay Helton. Once he's done with that job, he's out.
Be better. And I don't even care about the school or the team at all. And but USC should be better. Like, for the sport of college football. Because here's the thing people don't realize when they're like, dissolve the Pac-12, is that you're never going to get rid of the Pac-12. Why? Because you got about 20 schools out here on the West Coast that can't go to any other conference. There has to be a conference out here. Like, like the Big 12 and the Big 10 could dissolve because they're in the middle of the country and they can go anywhere else. Like, they could, but the Pac-12, like, there has to be a conference this side of the country. So we need it to be good.
Okay, so they have Keaton Slovis, right?
He's very good.
They're returning a lot of offensive they're returning a lot of trenches players, both on offense and defense, which is always good for a team. They looked nice at the end of last year. I just don't see them recruiting at a level where they can compete right now with Oregon on the recruiting trail
No,
and
not at
by
all.
default on the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They could win their division for sure. They can win the South. Well,
Mhm.
I mean, it's basically, can they beat Arizona State?
Right. And who knows
Um,
about Arizona State right now?
Who knows? There's no other team in that division that I'm super confident in.
Right.
Utah could be good, but we don't know. Utah either ranges from being fine to great, and you're not sure this year. USC, they're probably going to make it back to the conference championship game, and they're probably going to lose again. Like,
See,
because
here's
that's
the thing.
what
I
Clay
think if they
Helton
make
does. Like,
and I think it depends because can Keaton Slovis kind of get Clay Helton over the hump, the metaphorical hump, even though I don't really think there is one. I think that I just think I don't think he can get over that. I don't know. Can he win them one game in the conference title game and kind of put himself on the map draft wise? I don't know. I think it's possible. I don't know if it's likely.
I'm not super high on Keaton Slovis as a draft prospect just because he was going to have worn out his arm so much by the time he gets drafted because they do air raid. But also it's like, Keaton Slovis doesn't really do anything for me. It's more that like he doesn't screw it up to me. Like,
right.
His big thing is that he's not bad. Like he's, and this probably sounds super mean, but like, no, he's fine. And like, and he operates that offense, a offense with talent that's better than most of the teams that they face, that puts up points, but I've just never been impressed with it.
Yeah,
and until
that's how I feel.
The entire thing is that like USC has not been impressive ever since Sam Darnold left, and even that was the first season with Sam Darnold was good. Like, and the second one was fine again, and they just wasn't impressive. And Clay Helton, it will continue to not be impressive as long as Clay Helton is there. But guess what? USC is in no position to replace him for some reason, and I honestly think we're probably going to get another 2-3 years of this.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think Clay Helton's kind of riding in a comfortable position where he's really not going to get forced out.
Or as long as UCLA is still terrible, USC is gonna be dominant in that department in their city, a city where not a lot of people care about college sports. And on top of that, Pac-12 either needs Oregon to just boat stomp everything, win several playoff games, like, or like win the conference, run the conference for a while that makes USC want to be better, or like UCLA's got to get better. Because like right now, there's USC can keep winning their division by being average. What is going to make you change your system if you keep beating your division and by being average? Because you'll keep deluding yourself that you're one game away.
And that's the big thing. So yeah, no, I'm with you.
Sorry, I feel strongly about this.
No, you're good. Let's head back up north for the Washington teams. I'm going to ask both of these questions at the same time, just so we could speed things up. Will the Washington offense keep up with Jimmy Lake's defense? And how will Washington State look without Mike Leach? I know we saw it a bit last year, but in this first full season, how do we think they're going to look like?
Okay.
Number one, let's go Washington's offense. Can they keep up with Jimmy Lake's defense? Your Huskies, Tyler. Your adopted Huskies.
I know. I don't. They probably not. More just because Jimmy Lake's defense is going to be really good again because it's Jimmy Lake and it's Washington. But I mean, Dylan Morris was fine last year.
He was okay.
Washington was fine, and it's more of a matter of they were still playing with their offense, that system of like, we're gonna run a lot, and like they are based in the run, and it's that kind of San Francisco 49ers thing. It's like everything we do is based off the run, and our quarterback is going to hit a couple deep shots, and like if we've got a good quarterback, it's gonna be really hard, and good running game, it's gonna be really hard to stop this offense.
It's kind of like that offense is designed with a really good defense in mind.
Yeah, and that's great, but like, how many years have we been doing this to ourselves where we've learned that you can't win at a high level by consistently doing that? You can win a lot of football games like that, but like, you got to get a good quarterback and a good passing game in there. So I think they'll be fine again, but while they have this coordinator and until Dylan Morris shows me something more, I think it's still just going to be a good Washington team. Like, and a good Washington team is one of the best teams in the conference.
Right. And similar to Oregon traveling to Ohio State, Washington travels to Michigan on September 11th. Fun, interesting game.
I do think they can win that game.
I agree. I agree. And I think that game is going to be indicative of kind of how they approach the rest of the season. And no team ever quits, but like I do feel that it'll kind of light a little bit underneath them, and they'll look at that Oregon game a little bit like, yeah, okay, we can do this. We can take that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And maybe try to work themselves into the Pac-12 title game. Washington State, how are they going to look in their first full season without Mike Leach? Have they rid the air? I mean, they're doing more of a run and shoot
kind of thing.
So, but have they adapted the roster?
So they got Max Borghi coming back, which is pretty big for them because he only played one game in 2020. He's pretty much their whole running game. I do think the roster is kind of starting to construct in a way that's good, more balanced for the offense, which is good.
Right.
But the question is their defense going to be good enough at all to, help them stay in games? And I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure that it is. So I don't think Mike Leach helped them in a lot of ways there.
Can I read you? They played in 4 games last year. Can I read you the opponent's score totals?
Go ahead.
38, 43, 38, and 45.
Yeesh.
I'm sorry, 28, 43, 38, and 45. But still.
They had 1 win last year.
Yeah. Okay. They played 4 games, so granted. But yeah, interesting.
Yeesh.
I hope they stay with Jaden DeLora at quarterback. I liked what he did last year as a true freshman. But they did get Jarrett Garantano. So
don't do that.
No, I'm not doing. Hey, listen. I'm not
yelling at you. I'm yelling at them. Like, what is Jarrett Garantano gonna do in the run and shoot?
I don't. He's gonna hold the hell of a clipboard. That's what they'll do. Potential hot seat coaches for the Pac-12. I put Chip Kelly at UCLA because I think it's put up or shut up year for him. And Herm Edwards. I love Herm, but this has nothing to do with his on-field performance. It has everything to do with him bringing in recruits and holding workouts and all these things during the COVID dead period when he wasn't supposed to and getting caught for it. So,
yeah,
bit of a problem.
Not great, Herm.
Not great, Herm, as much as I love him. So it's the same situation Scott Frost is in at Nebraska, except Scott Frost at Nebraska could get fired for football reasons only. So there's that to keep an eye on. Tyler, let's bring it home with the Southeastern Conference. We are going to forget about Oklahoma and Texas for now. We are going to stay with this year's iteration.
Big ask for you. That's a big ask for you.
Is it?
I could do it easily.
I can do it easily too. So question number 1, Tyler. Can JT Daniels and the new Georgia offense end their national title drought?
So there's part of me that says this would be the team, but I don't think so. Like, I really don't. Like, just because I continue to think that they've got a bit of a ceiling with the way that they run their team. Like, with the way that Kirby Smart runs that team, they've got a bit of a ceiling, and the best team they ever had was the Sony Michel and Nick Chubb, 2 NFL running back duo, Jake Fromm freshman year, lightning in a bottle, one of the best defenses ever. And they're going to have a good defense. JT Daniels is a very productive quarterback. I think he will be good. He showed out at the end of the last season in games against not great opponents.
Right.
And then he was okay against Cincinnati.
So let me defend JT Daniels real quick. He had a lot of pressure put on him.
That's true.
And not because of his own fault. Because Kirby said before the season started that he was fully healthy. And then we didn't see him until after the Florida game. So either Kirby was lying or he was getting beat out by the law offices of Stetson Bennett IV and Dwan Mathis, which is a bit embarrassing. Now, granted, we saw him perform, like you said, really well against lower tier competition at the end of the season. When he went up against the best team that he saw all season, he being JT Daniels, it was a tough game for him against Cincinnati. Yeah. So,
and I think JT Daniels was absolutely the quarterback they should have gotten when they got at him. I think he will be the best one there. I think he actually will be a good SEC quarterback.
I agree.
He will probably be one of the better ones this season, but it's again one of those things where I don't think Kirby Smart's Georgia teams do anything for their quarterback. The quarterback is who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't think their offense of the teams that they're structured, they make the quarterback better.
Right.
So it's basically, can JT Daniels, just as who he is, take this Georgia team to a new place? He'll be probably one of the better, more productive ones they've had with a better arm than Jake Fromm.
Mm-hmm.
This will be a good team. I think pretty strongly that Georgia's going to win the East and be in Atlanta. But I don't think this is the team to win a national championship.
So my answer to this is Georgia is a national championship caliber program in every aspect of the game except the actual game.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is this is a team that recruits at an elite level, facilities at an elite level, the administration of the university, the athletic department, the fundraising arm, the alumni base. They have everything needed to win a title. But Kirby Smart's in-game decisions usually come back to bite.
Always something.
Always something. Always something. And here's the thing: I don't think they should be doing anything different. They're literally.
I don't know what
plan.
The only thing I would say to do different is to hire a different offensive coordinator. But still, like Todd Monken, their offensive coordinator, was a good hire in that direction. And I think this year will be the year with JT Daniels a full year, that if he's really as good as he says, that they can prove that. Like,
I agree.
Yeah, but
it's just interesting because they are by far the best team in the East, and because there's a lot of question marks with Florida, which we'll get to. But yeah, man, I just don't see them having to do anything else. You know what I mean?
And part of winning the national championship, you have to remind yourself now, is you have to get through all of the SEC, win that, and then go play 2 more games.
Mm-hmm.
Can they do that? Can they also beat Clemson and Oklahoma?
See, this is the year.
Can JT Daniels outscore Spencer Rattler or DJ Uiagalelei?
Well, I guess we'll have the answer to the second question with DJ at the first game of the season, but
that's a great point.
But I don't know about Spencer Rattler, and playing someone at the beginning of the season versus the end of the season is completely different. And they have injuries to wide receivers. Arik Gilbert, who originally went to LSU, then transferred to Florida, then transferred from Florida to Georgia. He's away from the team with some personal stuff. So there's a lot of questions there in regards to the playmakers. I think that Georgia can win the Natty. I think that Georgia can make the playoff. I think Georgia can win the SEC this year. I mean, it takes one game against Bama. And we've seen them go. They have been the team that has gone the closest with Bama. They were in overtime of the national title game, for Christ's sake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I think it's possible. I don't know.
They'll probably Florida and Auburn are the only really tricky games on their SEC schedule. They can easily win both of those games, and they have undefeated SEC schedule, maybe one loss with Clemson going into the SEC championship. It could be a not great Bama team. That is a toss up to me if it's a not great Bama team. If it's a great Bama team, I'm taking Nick Saban over Kirby Smart. I don't know what else. Until it happens, I'm not going to pick Kirby Smart to beat Nick Saban.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Let's bleed this into the next question. The next question is, speaking of former Saban assistants, can Jimbo Fisher be the first Saban assistant to get the win over Saban?
Well, he doesn't have Kellen Mond anymore, so everything's off the table.
Okay, so first of all, people would say, "Oh my gosh, they're starting a new quarterback," and at least I know you and I are both saying, "Well, hey, look, they're improved from Kellen Mond."
This quarterback might not even be better than Kellen Mond, but I knew exactly what I was going to get with Kellen Mond, save for like 2 games, and of course one of them was against Florida.
Absolutely.
But what you're going to get with Kellen Mond, and I was just like, please, anything new. Like, I think it's tough because now Texas A&M is in a tough spot where Texas A&M, you're going to want to be really set up by the time that Texas and Oklahoma get back get into this conference.
Oh, yes.
You got a limited, and every team should look at this. You've got a limited window before it gets even tougher to win the SEC. And so of the former Saban assistants, I would put money right now on, of the ones available. I mean, honestly, I'd put money on Lane Kiffin to be the first one to beat him.
Yeah, right.
But
seems likely. Seems possible.
The next one would probably be Jimbo Fisher because they're offensive-minded guys. I don't see. and I don't even. This isn't even a raving endorsement of Jimbo Fisher. But like I don't see a defensive-minded head coach that is a disciple of Nick Saban beating Nick Saban at his own game.
Yeah, I don't see it
Like,
either.
And so my only thing is Jimbo Fisher, but then again, Jimbo Fisher is smart offense, but does not run tempo. He goes super slow. So it's basically they have less drives. They have to be more efficient. And when they're not, they don't play well.
Mhm.
And he's not at Florida State anymore. He doesn't have more talent than most of the teams that he faces. It's Texas A&M. He has more talent than a lot of the teams that he faces. But is Texas A&M really that much better from a talent perspective than Auburn, than Florida, than Georgia,
I think
than LSU?
I think they are better talent perspective. They've been recruiting really well in the past couple of years because of Jimbo. Jimbo's always recruited well. I think they're better than Auburn. I think talent wise, I think they're better. I don't know if they're better than LSU talent wise. They're probably on par with Florida talent wise right now.
And my point of all this is that even if you're on par, when Jimbo was at FSU, what other teams were on par with him talent wise?
Oh, he was with Bama and Georgia and Ohio State and Clemson. Well, not Clemson at the time, but you know what I mean.
But like teams in it, like that's the thing. Even if Texas A&M is more talented than Auburn, they have not shown a great record against Auburn at all. Like
no, they haven't.
It's been like a 50-50 record against Auburn.
God, Gus is so good, man. He just manages to go 50-50 against like the great coaches.
Everybody.
He's got the best
bad
record
coaches
against the coaches.
and good coaches. like it's incredible that Gus Malzahn can have 50-50 record against great other coaches that you're like, how does he beat them? And then there's other coaches who's like, why do you keep losing to this team?
I can't wait for 25 years down the line, us to be at some bar trivia. Be like, who was the coach that had the best record against Nick Saban? Gus Malzahn, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. But yeah, I would. Long way to talk about this, but I guess because this would be the year, if any Saban assistant was doing it this year, it'd be Jimbo. But that doesn't. It's not a ringing endorsement.
Yeah, it's Jimbo or Lane Kiffin, like you said earlier. So
yeah,
that's how I feel. All right, Tyler. The second to last questions. Will Florida's defense improve?
It has to.
Oh boy,
it has to, man.
My second question is a Florida offensive question, but let's focus on the defense really quickly. I'm with you. It has to improve. There's really no excuse. It needs to improve. It's not the Gator standard that Dan Mullen has been preaching for the past,
But I also mean that in the sense of it's gonna improve, I imagine, because Florida's defense being as bad as it was last year is almost an anomaly in the with how talented Florida is.
Mm-hmm.
So I see it. I think it will improve. How much it improves, that's a huge question, because are you gonna have an offense that helps your defense out a little bit more? Not that really matters, but are you gonna simplify it? Like we all said you should have. Probably not. They got rid of the cornerbacks coach and they've got a new one in. Is that going to do something for the defensive backs who really struggled a lot last year?
Hopefully.
I don't know. I mean, Jaden Hill just went down with a season-ending injury, and that's a pretty big loss.
I was going to say that, where most of the defensive backs are gone from last season. The returning starter was Kyer Elam, who's still there, who's supposed to be the best player in the secondary this season. But the guy opposite him, Jaden Hill, you're right, just tore his ACL, just tore his knee up. So he's going to be out for the whole season. It's going to be up to, guys like Jason Marshall, one of the Palmetto boys to step in, 5-star cornerback recruit. I think he can. I think he was going to be better than Jaden Hill personally, but I think he would have assumed the number 2 cornerback role as the year went on. But, he gets thrown into the fire now, straight off the bat. And good for him. Florida's got 2 fairly simple games to start the season with FAU and USF. And, first big test is Bama at home week 3 on September 18th. So we'll see how that goes with the defense. Second question, Tyler, how will Mullen help Emory succeed?
I think it's going to try and balance the offense more, because I really think that the going away from the run game last season was just we should call more pass plays because we have Kyle Trask, and Cal Pitts and Kadarius Toney. You still only get at most 99 plays in a game, at the very most. Some of them got to be runs, some of them got to be passes. And if I had Kyle Trask, Kyle Pitts, and Kadarius Toney, yeah, I'd probably pass the ball too. I think what's really going to be the tell of the offense this season is, can the offensive line improve? Because they were okay last year at times, and then they really kind of deteriorated later in the season.
Well, that's really the reason why Mullen went from, yes, you're right, we have Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts, but I mean, the real reason why he went to more passing was because the offensive line couldn't get any push,
Yeah.
They couldn't set things up for our running backs.
So if Emery is allowed to be versatile, dual threat, not have to put the whole game early on his arm, like if the team is allowed to be balanced, then hell yes, that's going to be great. I think that would be great. That's going to be Mullen's plan. But it's very interesting because it's so late in the game. Emery could come out and he fits the mold of a dual threat quarterback. He could come out as a gunslinger, and I wouldn't be surprised because he spent so much time being coached by Dan Mullen.
Yeah.
And it could be the Dak Prescott thing where he's still a threat with his arm and just happens to also be able to run.
Well, that's what everyone's been saying, where, I mean, if you go back to recruiting stories in 2017, people were saying, oh, this is a Mullen guy. Oh my gosh, Emory Jones is a Mullen quarterback. Why? Because not only can he, run the football and be very mobile, scramble out of the pocket, design runs, that kind of stuff, but he's got a really good arm. Go back and watch some of the tape of some of the times where he was thrown into the game, like the Auburn game that 2 years ago. That man came in, remember we were there when that middle of the game, he rode the end of the second quarter, had a couple drives. He looked really good, took him to a field goal when he was cold. And then last season got some designated quarters and mop-up duty, and he looked really good. The bowl game was, I don't want to say throw the bowl game away because I don't like that happened last year at the end of the season where Mullen was like, oh, we don't have anything to play for. No, finish the season strong. But anyway, that's another thing.
But you did lose
some of the stuff.
5 of your top 5 players. So,
right, yeah, obviously, but still, show some faith in the guys that are there, but whatever. Yeah, so. I'm with you. I think that he kind of goes back to the Prescott offense, the Tebow offense.
And I think what you've got going for you is that, I think Mullen has so far at Florida coached in ebbs and flows where the quarterback that comes after the quarterback before it is not always the same build.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that'll help you with the way that teams prepare for you. Teams have been having to prepare for a Kyle Trask, pass it most of the time offense for a while, and now they're going to have to prepare for something different.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're 100% right. So, well, we talked very little Florida on this podcast.
Yeah. Look at us.
Look at us.
Evolving.
Last question, Tyler. Instead of doing the potential hot seats, there's a lot of new coaches in the SEC. So instead of hot seats, I want to ask you, which of these new coaches will have the best season relative to their expectations? Okay. Brian Harsin at Auburn, Josh Heupel at Tennessee, Shane Beamer at South Carolina, and Clark Lee at Vandy. Which is going to have the best season relative to their expectations?
I'm tempted to go Clark Lee at Vandy. Because I don't think the expectations are very much, but I do like what Clark Lee's doing at Vandy, from a just recruiting, team building perspective,
a philosophy perspective.
Yeah, I like where it's going, and there's not a lot of expectations. I don't know. I don't think it's Josh Heupel because I think Tennessee expects a lot.
So here's the thing. I do think it's Josh Heupel.
Really?
Because I agree that Tennessee expects a lot, but I think Tennessee expects a lot in 2 or 3 years. I think this year, Tennessee says, good God, just give us some points. Similar to how Florida was at the end of McElwain, where it was good Lord, just score some points. Yes. Just a shell of an offense would be nice. And Mullen delivered. And I think Mullen exceeded expectations his first year, which is a good thing. But I think Josh Heupel will meet expectations because I think he's going to put up 35 points a game. I really do. I think against the middle of the pack SEC and below, he's going to put up between 24 and 35 points. Now, when he plays Florida and Georgia and Alabama, that's not going to be the case. But I think he's going to be able to put some stuff up. Now, their defense is in literal shambles. So I'm not saying they're going to win those games, but they're going to start losing games 42-35, 35-24, stuff like that. And it's going to look like Tennessee is a bit more along for the ride and improving in that sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
we'll see. I definitely don't think it's Brian Harsin at Auburn, just because
no.
I think Brian Harsin will have a good year expected to my expectations, but to Auburn's, no, it'll be bad.
Yeah, not so much.
He's still got Bo Nix as his quarterback, which is
listen, I'm a big proponent of good Bo Nix and bad Bo Nix. I've been seeing a lot more bad Bo Nix than good Bo Nix. I might have to.
We'll see. Maybe the thing that was keeping Bo Nix together the whole time was the gimmick offense. There's only one way to find out.
How can you listen? You can't look better than you are if aren't plays called where you underthrow an Oregon cornerback.
How do you overthrow Anthony Schwartz? How do you do it?
Literally the fastest player in
fastest player in the country. You overthrow him. What are you trying to prove?
You ain't slick, dude. Oh man. All right, good call, Tyler. Tyler, that concludes our Power 5 preview for the season. We will be back on the next episode with a Group of 5 in Independence, FBS Independence preview. But before we sign off, Tyler, let's go ahead and close out with Moment of the Week. Tyler, what was your Moment of the Week?
My Moment of the Week was getting a text from you, Sergio De La Sprea, about our new college fantasy football league. That was my Moment of the week. Yeah, that's what I needed to hear.
Absolutely.
Still thinking of a name for my team. I'm not sure where I'm at yet, but
I went with Waffle House University.
I know. I'm not sure if I should retire Purdy like a Brock Star or
you got one more year to use it, big guy.
That's
this
a good point.
Is the last year to use it.
It's a good point. I think I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yeah, we're going to be starting up our college fantasy football league again. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a great time. Tyler, my moment of the week. What was my moment of the week? Let's think back. We haven't recorded in a while. I can pick something from before.
Did you get any cool shirts or anything like that?
Well, so my cool shirts, courtesy of Homefield Apparel, they have arrived at their destination. Their destination is not where I am currently
where you
residing.
are.
Exactly. They have arrived. I have received a picture from my father saying your mail has started to pile up, and a picture of 2 Homefield packages. So I am excited to go ahead and open those up when I get to my dad's in the upcoming weeks, because I'm moving back down to South Florida. Yeah, I think my moment of the week had to be the whole Homefield Florida saga. I don't think we've been on since then.
And then Georgia came up the week after, and they still finished second.
Kirby Smart.
They still couldn't get a championship.
I'm telling you, man, Georgia's doing everything perfect except for on the football field.
Ooh, performance, baby.
Ooh.
The thing is that they got real close, and
okay. Like,
it was
I
just
definitely,
there was like 3 hours to go, and they were like 75% of the way there, and I was like, oh man, they haven't tweeted. That was 6 hours ago. They haven't tweeted anything. Did they beat it? Are they just waiting to like reveal it? Nah, it was a disappointing finish, which to me was great.
It was definitely one of those moments where I was the Key and Peele, the Jordan Peele sweating meme. It was definitely it was one of those situations. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, dude.
We all good. Hey, at least yours has been delivered. Mine has not arrived.
Well, that's what happens when you live out.
I do live in California, so
yeah, on the West Coast, sir. You made that decision. All right.
I'm sorry. All right. Like I'm not really apologizing because I got my job at Redacted, but
that's true. That's true. Did Steven get his yet?
Not to my knowledge. So
okay.
That makes you feel good as well.
Okay. We got fantasy football coming up. We got college football coming up. And we have our Group of 5 and Independence preview coming up soon. Tyler, I'm so excited to be back on this grind with you. We will be having some more announcements at the end of the next episode. So make sure you listen in and listen all the way through. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SJ_podcast. That's where you will find the link to all of our episodes, and you will find some occasional fun tweets from both Tyler and I, especially on game days when things do be happening, Tyler.
Oh, yeah.
With all that being said, Tyler, this has been the first episode of Season 5 of Sideline Judgment. My name is Sergio.
My name is Tyler.
And I've been waiting so long to say this, Tyler, but we are not biased. But go Gators.
Go Gators.